Hello and welcome to another video of this course. This is module 10, oil and gas accounting, and we're going to be looking at ethics and governance in oil and gas accounting. And under that, we'll be looking at ethical dilemmas in reserve booking and cost recovery, anti-corruption and compliance standards, the role of internal audit and government and governance frameworks. So let's look at ethics and governance in oil and gas accounting. The oil and gas industry has long been crucial to the global economy, providing the energy needed to power homes, industries, and transportation. However, this sector has frequently found itself at the center of ethical debates. The recent rise in environmental consciousness, coupled with the social and governance considerations, has brought the industry's ethical challenges into sharper focus. This module will focus on a comprehensive analysis of the ethical considerations in the oil and gas industry and present a balanced perspective to help us understand the complexities involved. But quickly, let us look at the evolution of the oil and gas industry. The oil and gas industry began in the mid-19th century with the drilling of the first commercial oil well in Pennsylvania, USA. As the industry grew, it played a crucial role in the industrialization and economic development of many countries, but its rapid expansion was often accompanied by significant ethical concerns. Historically, the industry has been criticized for its environmental impact, including oil spills, air and water pollution, and habitat destruction. Additionally, there have been numerous instances of human rights violations, including poor working conditions, exploitation of labor, and displacement of indigenous communities. These ethical challenges have prompted ongoing debates about the responsibilities of oil and gas companies towards the environment and society. So let's look at some of the ethical issues in the oil and gas industry. The oil and gas industry is a global enterprise with major players operating in multiple countries. And the industry is facing significant pressure from various stakeholders, including government, environmental organizations, investors, and the general public to adopt more sustainable and ethical practices. The key issues currently facing the industry include environmental impact. The extraction, production, and consumption of fossil fuels contributes significantly to greenhouse gas emissions and climate change. The industry is under pressure to reduce its carbon footprints and invest in renewable energy resources. Number 2, corporate governance. There are concerns about transparency, accountability, and corruption within the industry. Effective governance practices are essential to ensure ethical decision-making and compliance with regulations. Number 3 is social responsibilities. Companies are expected to contribute positively to the communities in which they operate, including respecting human rights, providing fair wages, and supporting local development. Safety and health. Ensuring the safety and health of workers is a critical ethical issue, particularly given the hazardous nature of oil and gas operations. Now let us see how stakeholders view ethical considerations in the oil and gas industry. The various stakeholders we have are environmentalists, investors, governments, and communities. The environmental organizations and activists are primarily concerned with the industry's impact on climate change and biodiversity. They advocate for stringent regulations, reduced reliance on fossil fuels, and a transition to renewable energy sources. Investors are increasingly focused on environmental, social, and governance criteria when making investment decisions. Ethical practices are seen as indicators of long-term sustainability and risk management. The governments have a dual role as regulators and beneficiaries of the industry. They must balance the economic benefits of oil and gas activities with the need to protect the environment and public welfare. Local communities affected by oil and gas operations often face social and environmental challenges. Ethical considerations include fair compensation, community engagement, and mitigation of the negative impacts. What are the benefits and challenges associated with ethical practices in the oil and gas? One of the benefits include enhanced reputation. The companies that adopt ethical practices can improve their public image and gain trust amongst stakeholders. Number 2, regulatory compliance. Adhering to ethical standards helps companies comply with regulations and avoid legal penalties. Investor confidence. Ethical practices can attract investment by demonstrating a commitment to long-term sustainability and risk management. Operational efficiency. Ethical practices can lead to better resource management, reduced waste, and improved operational efficiency. What are the challenges? Cost. Implementing ethical practices often requires significant investment in technology, training, and infrastructure. We also have resistance to change. There can be resistance within the industry to adopting new practices and shifting away from traditional methods. There's also complicity, because balancing economic, environmental, and social considerations is complex, and it requires comprehensive strategies and policies. Now, what are the potential impacts of ethical considerations in the oil and gas industry? The future of the oil and gas industry will likely be shaped by its ability to address ethical considerations effectively, and the potential impacts include transition to renewable energy. The industry may increasingly invest in and transition to renewable energy sources, reducing its environmental impact and contributing to global sustainability goals. We also have innovation in technology. Advancements in technology could lead to more efficient and cleaner extraction and production processes, minimizing environmental damage. Stronger regulations. Governments may implement stricter regulations to enforce ethical practices, compelling companies to adopt more sustainable and socially responsible operations. And we have increased stakeholder engagement. Companies may engage more actively with stakeholders, including communities, governments, and investors, to build collaborative approaches to ethical challenges. Now let us look at ethical bookings and cost recovery. Ethical dilemmas in oil and gas cost booking and recovery often arise from conflicting priorities between maximizing profits and upholding social and environmental responsibilities, particularly in developing countries. And it can manifest in different ways, including potential for inflated cost recovery, manipulation of data, and conflict over resource ownership and compensation. Now, under inflated cost recovery, in some areas, oil companies may attempt to inflate the cost of operations to recover a larger share of revenue, potentially at the expense of host governments and local communities. And it can lead to dispute over the fairness of cost recovery arrangements, particularly in the context of production sharing contracts. Data manipulation and transparency. Disagreements over data accuracy and transparency can arise particularly when determining recoverable reserves or quantifying production costs. The lack of transparency can undermine trust between companies, host governments, and stakeholders. Conflict over resource ownership and compensation. Oil and gas operators in the developing countries can lead to land displacement and loss of traditional livelihoods, raising ethical questions about compensation for the impact on the local communities. Environmental impact and climate change. The oil and gas industry faces growing pressure to address its environmental footprints, including greenhouse gas emissions and the impact of oil spills. Balancing the need for sustainable operations with the pursuit of profitability raises complex ethical challenges. We also have bribery and corruption. In some developing countries, oil and gas operations can be plagued by corruption, bribery, and criminal activities, potentially undermining the fair allocation of resources and the integrity of cost recovery processes. So what are the possible solutions to this dilemma? Transparency and accountability. Implementing robust transparency mechanisms such as mandatory reporting of costs and reserves can help to build trust and reduce the risk of inflated cost recovery. Fair compensation and resource governance. Developing clear frameworks for compensation and resource governance, taking into the account the specific needs and concerns of local communities, is crucial. Environmental sustainability. Oil and gas companies need to prioritize environmental sustainability, reducing their emissions and implementing measures to mitigate the risk of oil spills. Strong regulatory oversight. Governments must establish strong regulatory frameworks to ensure compliance with the ethical standards, combat corruption, and protect the interests of stakeholders. And we also have community engagement. Engaging with local communities in the planning and implementation of oil and gas projects can help to ensure that their concerns are addressed and that the benefits of the industry are shared fairly. By addressing these ethical dilemmas, the oil and gas industry can build a more sustainable and responsible future, ensuring that its operations benefit both the industry and the communities it serves. Now, let us look at anti-corruption and compliance standards in the oil and gas industry. Anti-corruption and compliance in the oil and gas industry involve implementing measures to prevent and detect bribery, fraud, and other corrupt practices while ensuring adherence to relevant laws and regulations. Corruption in the extractive sector is a persistent source of concern for the industry. Because of the sector's profitability, particularly in the oil and gas exploration and production, it is plagued by various forms of corruption ranging from money laundering to bribery to financial terrorism. And as a result, one major challenge for those working in this sector is determining how to reduce the risk of becoming entangled in the quagmire of corrupt activities, whether within their own corporation or through third-party interactions. What are the components of compliance standards in the oil and gas industry? We have anti-bribery policies, due diligence, internal controls, training and awareness, monitoring and reporting, transparency, record keeping, independent oversight, compliance with laws and regulations, collaboration, and communication. Now, so we have here examples of regulations and frameworks, but let's quickly look at the role of internal audits. Internal audits and governance frameworks play a crucial role in ensuring the integrity and effectiveness of operations within the oil and gas industry. They provide independent assurance to management and the board on the adequacy of these systems, helping to identify areas for improvement and mitigate risks. Internal audits help in assessing governance, evaluating risk management, assessing internal controls, reviewing governance processes, providing assurance, recommending improvements, supporting board oversight, and facilitating transparency and accountability, and building trust. Governance frameworks in oil and gas help in setting the stage, ensuring compliance, promoting sustainability, managing risks, supporting strategic objectives, and building trust and confidence. Thank you so much for watching this video. We've officially come to the end of the oil and gas module. See you in another video. Bye bye.